A Moment with Tyranny podcast. This episode in conversation is powered by Homes with Tyranny. Hey there, it is A Moment with Tyranny. Here we are back again with our episode 3, and today's episode is setting boundaries in business with family, friends, and relationships. So we're not going to waste a lot of time. We're going to go ahead and get into this. And my guest today is Joyce.
Joyce.
All right, we're going to get into this with some more wisdom. Someone that's been around here for a little while got some good advice for us. So we're just going to go ahead and get started. And let's talk about boundaries. Let's talk about setting boundaries. Like, when do we need to set boundaries, and basically what happens when we set boundaries and we offend people, and if we offend them, what do we do? So what's your thought on setting boundaries?
Well, when I think of excuse me, when I think of boundaries, I think about that little line that we don't cross, and that line could be in any relationship, whether it's with family, business, or whatever. There must be rules that you abide within, and there has to be respect of those rules from both sides. So I think it's important that we have boundaries in all parts of our lives.
Yeah, yeah. But setting boundaries can be difficult for some people, depending on the personalities. There's some people that can set boundaries and don't even care. It's like no is no, yes is yes, or that's just it. But we're in a society of really being more people pleasers. So a lot of times we allow our boundaries to get crossed a lot, and we end up in a situation where we're not happy, or we're being stretched, or we're being taken advantage of. And a lot of times when we go out and we start setting boundaries with people, they become offended or they're mad at you. And, what do we do if we have to set example with a family member? Let's just say a family member is always crossing the line with you. What steps do we take to set those boundaries?
Well, first of all, we're going to have to talk to that member of the family and tell them what our boundaries are.
Yeah.
And we're going to have to demand respect for that if we're going to succeed. We just cannot make a boundary and just let it just be there. See, there's a healthy type of boundary and there's a unhealthy type. So we're going to talk about the healthy type.
Yeah.
Is when we both respect each other,
Yeah.
and we work within that boundary.
Yeah.
Now, the unhealthy one is altogether, it's just opposite of that.
More of a
And
selfish.
yes, and if you tolerate that, it's not going to work. You're going to
Yeah.
have to have you set boundaries, and you're going to have to respect them.
Yeah. And I hear us talk about the healthy and the unhealthy, but a lot of us don't even realize that there is a healthy boundary. We just know that there's boundaries, and we don't know exactly why we set them there. But you also have family members and friends and coworkers and just people in general that don't understand boundaries. And whether it's healthy or not, all I see is that I want something now, and I'm going to push it off on you. I mean, example of some of the unhealthy boundaries. Let's talk about that. What is an unhealthy boundary?
I think an unhealthy boundary is when we expect a person to do what we want to do, regardless of the time or the convenience. And I think that is wrong. And I will switch back over to the healthy boundary. It's when you are able to say no.
Mm.
Now, that's on the healthy side.
Mm.
Uh, as far as family, sometimes we feel like, well, there is no line. There is nothing. We could just,
Yeah.
and friends, we could just talk anytime, even wake you up at night to talk. And I don't think that that is appropriate.
Yeah.
So we got to stick by what our rules are.
Yeah.
and that's going to be what will make us successful.
So how would you deal with, say that you had a friend and they felt that it was okay for them to call you whenever they wanted to come to call, or drop by your house whenever they wanted to drop by, you know, how would you deal with a friend like that?
Well, if it's unannounced,
Hmm.
you don't have to answer that door. You don't have to answer that phone. And you can always say, well, I don't talk to anyone before 9 o'clock. I don't answer. Yeah, you just have to establish your own line.
But then, well, okay, so then you tell me that, and I'm your friend, and I'm like, but Joyce, we've been knowing each other for 45 years, and if you were really my friend, you would be there for me when I need to talk to you.
Well, that has nothing to do with that line. We're going to have to establish that line, and they'll have to respect that.
Yeah, and
And
I
if you are a friend, you will understand and you will respect that.
and I think that that right there is the challenge. Is setting boundaries. Is that we have to. We say if you're my friend, you're going to understand, but in real life, people can say that, but when it's time to really put that on a person, a person never really knows how they're going to accept it or handle it until it comes to them, because a lot of times we honestly feel like what I'm saying right now is important and I need to talk now and you got to do it. And that is a toxic, and I use the word toxic a lot, but that's not a healthy boundary. But there's sometimes that we have to put that on there. Can we bend it sometimes? Yes. I don't think that we always have to be real hard, firm, and pressed on some things, but I think boundaries are important because we have to have a mental status as well
Mm-hmm.
as the person that's coming to you. And if I'm not in the right frame of mind when you come to me with your issue or concern or your visitation, it may not work. That visit or that conversation may not be the best conversation. So we do have to set some kind of boundaries based off of our mental emotions and what's going on with us right at that time. Because if it's not a good time, it's not a good time. But what I have found my issue to be is with friends. Not all friends. I have some really great friends that understand, what's going on, but I have some friends that feel that if they really want to talk, no matter what time it is, or I can be in the middle of a meeting or something, and they're like, "Well, I need to talk to you," and I can be, and I'm like, "Hey, I'm in a meeting. Let me call you back." Okay, well, let me just say this, and it's like, now I'm learning that my first mess up was that I crossed my own boundary first by answering that phone call. So, in order to keep a boundary, I need to also set my ground, right?
Well, the first question is this an urgent situation?
Mm.
Or is this just something you want to chat about? Or because you think that we're friends, that you could approach me anytime, wake me up out of my sleeper? No. But if it's urgent, I would consider that.
But right
Other,
now it's urgent to me because I need to tell you what just happened to me and I want to talk about it right now. So to me, it's urgent to me. But is it really urgent? No, most time it's not.
leave your line open for them to leave a message.
So and it goes back to the first step was when we set boundaries, we also have to set non-negotiables. We need to say, I am not going to answer this phone call at this point.
Leave a message.
Okay, okay, okay.
If it's urgent, you will call back.
So let's talk about boundaries within a workplace. You have people that will dump responsibilities. You have management that will dump responsibilities. You have, you got those people that will take advantage of you. And what kind of boundaries would you say in a work environment you would need to set?
Go back to the word no. My schedule is full. I cannot take on anymore.
Hmm.
That's the boundary right there. You set that line.
Hmm. Yeah, and I agree with you on that. And I have had, in my experience, I have had problems with boundaries at work, and I'll be just honest about it because Someone to bring something because they're like, you know what, Tyranny is quick. She can get it done. She doesn't procrastinate. And so what they'll do is they'll keep putting more and more and more on my plate to now I'm overwhelmed. I have a bunch of deadlines I have to meet. So even after I've clocked out from work, I'm still working, which is now crossed over into my personal, my other businesses, my rest time. So it's kind of hard sometimes to set those boundaries, but and it's hard to say no, and you say no, but it's hard when your superior, your senior management comes and they have a deadline because they've committed. Now they haven't even talked, they have no clue on how much work it's going to take, but they've committed a client or someone to a narrow or small window deadline, and so they're like, go give it to Tyranny or go give it to Joyce. And then they say, Joyce, we need this Friday, but you already have three things. So to say no could mean your job. It can mean, a bad review. It can mean a write up. So how do you set that
Well,
boundary?
you can always tell your boss that you need help because of what you already have
Mm,
on your plate.
okay.
You can't do it all.
Yeah.
And you must make it known to them where you are because they are expecting you to do this along with
Yeah.
that they've already assigned to you,
Yeah.
and sometimes it's impossible for us to do it.
Yeah.
And we have to make known to this and let them uh, make a decision. Now, which one do you want done? Keep it behind that line of the boundary. Which one of these do you want me to do?
Yeah. So you're saying with business, then you're saying our boundaries are going to be time frame, time management, and not accepting more than we can handle, basically. So our boundaries when it comes to the job is going to be, here's my timeline, here's my deadlines. So you give me a priority, but you got 8 hours or maybe 10 hours I'm gonna give you. So more of a company boundary or working boundary is give them how many hours you're going to give them, and then you need to stop it.
Right. When I was in the workforce, when I opened that door and walked into my office, that's when my time started.
Mm-hmm.
When I left and closed that door, I left everything behind that.
Mm-hmm.
That was my boundary there.
Mm-hmm.
So you have to set boundaries, or you will forever
Mm-hmm.
be asked to do things. You can make yourself available, and you can make yourself unavailable.
Yeah. So let's talk about in a relationship. If you're in a relationship and a person just don't, they're not respecting your time, they're not respecting your emotions, they're not respecting things that you do, are there boundaries that you set within a relationship?
Of course,
Okay. So,
every relationship should have a boundary. There are certain things that you do. There are certain things you don't do.
mm-hmm.
There's certain things you allow. There are things you don't allow, and that must be said.
Yeah. So So if I'm new in a relationship and I see that this person never calls me before 10 o'clock at night, or they want to come over late at night, you know, do I say no? Do I say if you're going to talk to me, you call me at this hour? I mean, if you do that, what if that makes that relationship go away?
Well, it'll have to go if it's without respect for your boundaries. It would have
Mm,
to go.
mm, okay. So so that's my thought on boundaries and struggles with boundaries and stuff because a lot of times I try to set boundaries and I get pushback. And so now I've had to learn to just take my phone and put it into another room, or I've had to walk away from friendships because, people felt that I was being selfish because I wanted to have my time to do things without them understanding that I have things I have to do. I do have a life outside of this. And I also had to realize some people don't have a life.
That's true.
So,
Well, I've had friends uh, that don't really know what a boundary is.
yeah, right there.
And let me give you an example.
Okay.
If a friend call uh, you and we talk, and they'll say, "Well, the next call you're supposed to call me. I mean, no, not necessarily.
Yeah.
You can call me anytime you want to, but to say that the next call I got
Mm-hmm.
to call you, that's beyond my line.
Mm-hmm.
If you need to talk to me, you can call me anytime. If I need to talk to you, I'll call you. But there's no set time that I should be calling anybody all the time.
So would you also say though boundaries are not always just what you said, but maybe boundaries are also something that someone tries to put on you,
Exactly.
so you don't allow someone else's expectations or do.
That's crossing my line.
Mm-hmm.
I will not accept that.
Mm-hmm. So basically, from what I'm getting is that it's healthy that we have healthy boundaries, we have unhealthy boundaries. And in order to balance life and be happy and healthy within ourselves, mentally, physically, is that we need to always set boundaries, timelines, expectations, and don't be afraid to say no.
That's right.
So, no is a good word.
And it doesn't take long to say it.
And sometimes if it after you've struggled with trying to say no a couple of times, once you start doing it, it becomes easier. So before you know it, it's like you ask a question, do you? Nope. Are you? No. Oh, can I finish my question? Nope. So the takeaway that I'm hearing that from our session today is that setting boundaries in business, family, friends, and relationships is that we need to really learn the word no, and we need to set solid boundaries, clear boundaries, and don't be afraid to express those boundaries.
Exactly.
So letting those boundaries be known up front can also save a lot of problems and a lot of questions and a lot of headaches. Am I kind of on the target on that?
Exactly. That's on the ball.
Well, that's what our moment with tyranny is for this week. Let me go ahead and, if you haven't, make sure that you're following a moment with tyranny on a podcast on Facebook, on our YouTube, and also Instagram. There's the information that you see. Just go ahead and subscribe and follow us. We just take a few moments just to put some thoughts out there and some opinions. Feel free to leave a comment if you want to discuss something further. Leave those comments. We will respond back to them and possibly talk about some of those things on our follow-up podcast. And also, my quote for today is going to be, it's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think who you think you're not. Let me say that one more time and listen to that closely. It's not who you are that holds you back, it's who you think you're not. So marinate on that until our next session. My next episode with a moment with tyranny is going to be buyers be prepared to view properties and be on time. For those I'm also a real estate agent. I'm a realtor here in the DFW area, Dallas Fort Worth area. And again, I'm going to always plug me because that's my life. I love it. And I also love my podcast. But I have some real experience and knowledge on that information, so that's going to be a very interesting topic. If you're looking to sell or buy a home, you really want to follow me and listen to that episode. Again, that's going to be buyers. Be prepared to view properties and be on time. So thank you again, and look forward to you joining us for our next episode. Follow us again, and we will talk to you soon.